Welcome to Good Dog TV, bringing you the latest dog news and entertainment from the American Kennel Club. I'm Marissa Sarback. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is our Ask the Expert edition with Dr. Jerry Klein. I'm sure you recognize him because we chatted with you in Orlando.
Right.
And it's so funny, Dr. Klein, because we really have made such a switch weather-wise from Orlando. It's sunny, it's beautiful, and we came back here to New York. It's been freezing all week.
Snowbirds the wrong way.
I know.
I know, we went the wrong direction.
We need to just stay there,
That's
in the warm
exactly
weather.
True. But I think it's very true what happens in dogs in general. They travel with their owners, so they do all kinds of different climates. So, like them, us, yeah.
I know. So the interesting thing we want to talk about today, just going off that theme of people in different types of climates deal with different issues. Winter woes, we'll call them, winter blues, whatever you want to say. Different issues arise with our pets in the winter than we would deal with in the summer. So the first one I want to talk about is just overall, what do we have to focus on when we have our dogs in the winter months? What do we need to know about snow, sleet, protecting them?
Well, I think the basic thing is, what's a dog used to? Like we talked briefly, a dog that is raised in the South, it's going to be used to probably warmer weather and it's be shocked into cold weather. Even a Malamute won't handle it very well. Whereas dogs that are, raised in colder climates and are more used to that. A gradual change is going to be less shocking to the system than a sudden change. That being said, the way the weather's been, the patterns recently, extreme weathers, can be very, very horrific for dogs. Hypothermia certainly can happen. And at that point, you have to be very cognizant of that. So also, a dog should be generally healthy. So dogs that are older or have some kind of metabolic disease like kidney disease or heart disease, older dogs, frail dogs, very small dogs, short-haired dogs, or even hairless dogs are going to be much more susceptible to cold weather than the dogs like a Samoyed.
And talking about that in terms of coats, because I know we see here in New York City, a lot of people will put coats on dogs just because it's so cold. Right. People think, I'm a human, I wear a coat, I should put one on my dog too. Are they necessary?
Well, I'm going to tell you, years ago, I was kind of one of those naysayers thinking, oh, that's just, I'm not sure that they even need that. But I really kind of come to realize that there is a need for it. And dogs that are, again, they're kept inside most of the time. And when you have those horrible weather days when the weatherman says, don't go outside or keep your pets inside, I think we should listen to them. They're the experts in weather. And if it's too cold for us to be outside for a period of time, it's probably going to be too cold for our pets as well. We should be very aware of that. And so sweaters actually can be very good if a dog has had a recent haircut, for example, is not used to that. Or we mentioned short-haired breeds or small breeds or breeds that are close to the ground, like a dachshund, they're close to the ice and snow. So a sweater would be very well advised. It has to be fitting very well. Never leave them unattended with a sweater on because they can get caught on things. We don't want an accident with that. But I think there's a purpose for it, and plus they're fashionable.
They are very cute.
Yeah, they can be very cute.
All right, we do have our first question from William. He is wondering, is there anything that I should do to protect my dog's paws during the winter months?
Well, a couple of things. I think a real common concern, and I think most people know at this point, are de-icers. And they can be very caustic and irritating to the pads of the feet, and they can burn. And they make safer pet-safe de-icers. You don't want to go with the chlorides with the salts because they tend to be less caustic. But the problem is you can only do your own yard. If you live in the city and you're walking down the block, you can't dictate what the shop owner is going to be putting on the sidewalk or anything else, or even in the suburbs. I mean, some communities have a policy of putting pet-safe products on, but not everyone will. So that being said, always get in the habit after a walk of wiping your dog's paws get a damp rag and just make sure you get all the stuff between the pads. Some people put like a bucket of warm water just outside, like in their mud room, for example, and they duck the paws in, they dry it. And it gets rid of the salt and it also dries the pads. You want to make sure that they dry off really well before you put them back outside so they don't freeze. But that kind of stuff can be really helpful for a dog. And also they're going to lick the product themselves, and that can cause irritation. It can be toxic if eaten in a large amount. Most dogs won't eat that much to be toxic, but it can be. But the fact that it burns and irritates, we should be very cognizant of that. A couple of things too, they make products like, the sledding dogs use like a product, it's like paw wax that helps like a seal. I think it's called like a Musher's Secret or something. And also bag balm, like a large animal thing to kind of keep pads soft. So you can do that before long walks or if you need to. But basically be cognizant, prevent, keep the coat kind of trimmed between the pads so you don't get those icicles that form, and that can be pretty painful.
So there really is a little bit more work that goes into taking care of our dogs in the wintertime than in the summer.
And that's why people buy booties, because again, it started out as being fashionable, but when you put through all the work that you have to do to make sure your dog's paws stay healthy, sometimes booties can be preferential if you get used to the ones. You know, so not all dogs like them, but they have to get used to it. Start with one paw at a time.
I was just going to say, we've all seen those videos on Facebook of the dogs trying to walk around with
walk on one foot. I know, and it's really funny for a day or two, but overall, it can be very helpful. And I think that that's the safest way of not bringing chemicals into your dog's life.
So going back to our sweater question, somebody has a question, Florence. She's wondering, she has a 3-pound Yorkie. Should she put a sweater on her when she takes her out in the cold? Does it matter breed-wise?
Well, I think it depends how long she's going to be going out. The 3-pound Yorkie is tiny, and they're going to be very sensitive to all changes. So those are the ones that we talk about being a fragile dog. You know, it doesn't take much of anything to cause changes in a 3-pound dog. So if you're going to be going out, for a 3-pound dog, you're probably going to carry and put them under your sweater yourself. But you put them down, have them do their stuff, and that's probably going to be it. If you're taking them for a moderately long walk, I think a sweater would be advised on that.
We do have another question. Anina is wondering, how long can dogs stay outside in the winter?
Well, I think we talked briefly about that. If it's too cold for us to be outside for any extended period of time, it's probably too cold for a dog. And it depends how long they've been acclimated for it. So people that live up, you know, in the northern climates and have their dogs go outside for a while, and if it's probably they can handle it a lot better. If it's not windy as well. You know, I think the wind can really alter how long a dog can stay outside, just as how long we can stay outside. We do know that if you're going to have dogs stay outside, have some kind of a barrier against the wind, so they have some form of shelter. But I think a dog's body language will tell you how long they've been. If they stop moving around, start whining, becoming anxious, we have to realize that they're probably telling us they're having a problem. We have to be sensitive to that.
We really have to listen to that body language, just because they can't talk to us like a kid could or a person. You
know, one thing we talk about heat stroke a lot, and that's very dramatic, but hypothermia is more insidious. It's gradual. And it's not as dramatic as, you know, overheating, but it can be just as dangerous. So we have to be very cognizant of that as well.
Now we have another question from the same woman. She's wondering, do dogs become more lost in the winter months?
That's a great question, and actually it's true. I didn't realize that. I did a little research. The largest amount of dogs or cats getting lost is in the winter months with heavy snowfalls. They obscure all kinds of landmarks, you know, that a dog or a cat would get used to. You know, I know they can smell really well, but even that much snow, not every dog is adept at that scent work. You know, that we've seen some of those dogs do. So dogs can get lost in cats after heavy snowfall days. So keep your dogs on a leash or be attended where they're at, because you can't even tell where your yard ends and another yard starts. So a dog can't either.
And we have another question in from Maggie. She's wondering, here we put boots on our dogs in the summer. I'm not sure where she is exactly, but she says so that they don't burn their feet. So I'm assuming she's somewhere in the south. So not so much in the winter. Good idea for washing their feet before coming into the house. So she is in agreement with everything you said, I guess, but kind of flipped because they're in the southern states.
Yeah, I think it's the easiest thing to do. Yeah, asphalt is horrible on pads of the feet. And like I said, it's just as dramatic. But if you ever walked a dog and when it's really cold and ice out, even my dog, I have Afghan hounds, they start whining after a while, especially the old one. And she gets sensitive, she'll start picking up a foot. They start getting very anxious. So we learn not to go for too long a walk. We can get them back inside if we need to, so we're not stranded in the middle of nowhere and then have to like carry a 60-pound dog. It's not going to be good for my back. So learn about your dog. You know, she was 15, she's arthritic. You know, she doesn't need to be outside for a period of time. She doesn't want to be outside for a period of time. You know, and it's all well and good. You have to understand what their needs and wants are as well.
So let's talk a little bit about exercise in the winter, because I know it's probably even tougher for most humans, we admit, just to get out and be active in the winter months. But your dogs, probably the active breeds, really still need that exercise. What can you do? Well,
I think first of all, walks are always, you know, the best form of exercise for all dogs. Parks are great, but if you can't do that, you know, then you can try to find some kind of indoor fetching or games and keep their mind active as well. But unless the weather is so cold that you can't be out for a period of time, it shouldn't mean that you can't take a dog out for a walk. Assuming we talked about like sweaters if they need to, or things to protect the feet, or, you know, just do it short bursts instead of like one extended long activity.
So don't really give up on that exercise,
no,
just
change
find other ways to work with it.
And I think in this day and age, there's indoor facilities that are training grounds that you can find if you need to, dog training centers, and that are optional. So I think there's, you know, never say, it's a good excuse not to exercise for a man and beast, but you can find a way to do it if you want to. Right.
We have
Join a gym.
Join a gym,
Join
right?
a gym.
Dog gyms.
Right, yeah.
We have a non-winter question for you. Gina was wondering, I have a Vizsla that has separation anxiety. What is the best thing for me to do?
Well, that's a behavioral question. It doesn't necessarily related to the cold, but I think that's a combination of things. Short increments of getting him or her used to the fact that you're being gone. Use a cage or a crate as a form of containment so the dog doesn't hurt themselves. Do it in short bursts. Talk to your veterinarian about behavior modification. There's medication that can be used as an adjunct with that as well, but don't give up and be patient. It's not a one-day solution, but it takes time to resolve that.
And jumping back on the winter questions here for a second, I know that you had said, you and I talked about antifreeze being a real issue in the winter months for our pets. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Antifreeze is ethylene glycol, and it's extremely toxic to dogs and cats and children, unfortunately. Anything that is ingested by it. It's sweet tasting, so it's kind of like palatable, for them. So unfortunately, it can cause severe kidney damage and failure. It's very, very toxic. It's usually in garages, so if a dog gets loose in a garage, you have to be careful of spills and puddles. And if it's very toxic, if you think your dog got into it, call your vet right away. It's definitely an emergency.
And that's the material we have in our windshield wipers for our cars.
That's one type. That's prevent that from freezing. But antifreeze is also used in the motors itself to prevent that from freezing as well. And when we talk about motors and cold weather, we should talk. This is not a dog question per se, but a lot of dog people have cats. If they hang out outside in a garage, they tend to seek warm areas to kind of hang out. And a car that just has been running and it's turned off, it's going to be a little bit warm, so they're going to huddle under the hood of a car. So a general rule of thumb is always worry if there's a cat under there. If you live with a cat, and has access to a garage.
Even if you don't and you leave your car out and you have neighbors with cats.
You just never know, They say to honk your horn or at least tap on the hood of the car before you start the car to prevent any kind of catastrophe for the poor cat. So,
all right.
I feel bad for those cats too.
I know they do. All right, Kelsey has a question. My parents' Malamute prefers to be outside, so coming in the house is actually a treat. Usually lasts about an hour by their choice. I guess she's wondering maybe if it's okay to leave them outside in the winter
that dog
months?
is telling you exactly what it likes. It's a breed that was bred to have a double-coated protective layer. That dog feels very, very comfortable outside. As long as the dog is generally healthy, you should have them checked out by your vet, and it doesn't have other issues like severe arthritis or something else where that cold could really hamper its mobility. And the dog also has proper shelter, some kind of wind barrier, food and water. And a good thing we want to mention too, in cold weather, water freezes outside. So if you have free access to water, they have containers that have warming elements so that the water bowls don't freeze. But if you can't get that, check in your dog's water, make sure that the bowl hasn't frozen over.
Especially if they are going to be spending a lot more time outside.
Dogs need food and water, whether it's inside or out. And food doesn't freeze usually, although some of it can't, but water will. And they need water badly.
And speaking of water, not the drinking kind, but lakes is something that people really need to be, rivers, any kind of water that could freeze over if it gets too cold.
Yeah, and if people that live near like ponds or lakes, some of the ice can form, and it might not be a very thick or sturdy ice, and a dog can actually fall through the ice. And we see all those unfortunate news things where people have to go in tractors and pull a horse or a dog out because they venture out too far, and even children do that. So be careful of those areas that we go to, and realize it's probably not safe to do that.
So these winter months, they really just provide a little bit extra work and watching over for everyone.
Well, it can be beautiful, but it can have its dangers as well. And I said it's not as dramatic as the hot summer months, but it can be just as dangerous in a different way.
Especially depending on where you are. Here in New York, we'll face a lot more issues than people in the Carolinas.
And the weathers are changing. The climate is changing. And we tend to see worse weather patterns now than we used to before. And some of the severe cold, when it goes like -20 wind chill, like in Chicago where I'm from, that can be very dangerous. I mean, we don't want to go outside, and then don't have our dogs go outside very much at all, either just to do their business, and that's it.
Absolutely. All right, our next question is in. Tyler is wondering, on a different note, any advice on how to get huskies to come in from the snow? I guess another one that wants to really be out
another
there.
breed that they thrive outside, and so there's no reason to have them come in unless you don't want to keep them outside unattended. You have to reward them with food, obviously, or just praise them when they do come inside and give them a place to lay where they're not excessively warm. And as long as they have a venue, like I said, to go outside to stay some kind of area that's covered, and you at least check on them every once in a while. Never let them go unattended for too long a period of time. I never trust anything, so that's my Jewish background. So,
how often would you say it is good to check? Once an hour?
I think it depends on the dog and depends on the climate. I think there's no fast rule on that. If it's exceedingly cold outside, I would not leave them unattended at all. If there's
even
snow,
though they may want to be.
Yeah, I mean, they have to prove themselves. You know, I mean, I'm too anxious. I can't relax inside knowing that my dog is outside unattended, and I have to keep checking on it. And I think you have to kind of gauge by the weather, the dog, and the kind of person that you are and how attentive you are. Would you let your kids go unattended outside for too long? Absolutely. I would not do that.
Another question in from Melissa, staying with this theme. How long is it safe to allow your dog to play outside when it's snowing? She has a Pembroke Welsh Corgi double-coated breed.
Well, that's a breed that's low to the ground, so they're going to get a little colder than some of the other breeds. That being said, when it's snowy outside, many times it's not that cold, it's just snowy, and you have to make sure that the dogs don't get lost. But the weather gets really cold when it's too cold to snow. So it's great, lots of fun, like kids like to sled when it's outside. There's a lot of sports that are outside. So, you know, there's no reason to like not allow them to do that. But if the dog starts showing signs of being too cold, as I mentioned, they start whining, they're being anxious, they may lift their paws, they're reluctant to walk. It's been too long. Get them out of that area and get them warmed up.
Now, Dr. Klein, I know we've talked about having dogs outside for too long. Something else that's interesting, not really outside, but what about leaving your dog in a car? I know in the summer months we say never do that, not even for 30 seconds. You can't leave your dog. What happens in winter?
Well, it's not as dangerous and dramatic as in summer, but hypothermia can actually kick in as well. The car can be like an oven in the summer, but can also be like a refrigerator in the winter. So a dog that's going to be inside too long in the cold, it may take a little bit longer than it would outside, but it can still be dangerous and could have harmful effects. If you're going to leave your dog, if they have to be in the car, first of all, you should question whether you have to take your dog along to be in the car in the first place. Leave them at home where it's probably safer. But if your dog is in the car for a short period of time, at least have some blankets in the car where you can curl up and some place where you can get some kind of comfort. And certainly don't leave a dog unattended for longer than 5-10 minutes at the longest. And I hate to even mention any numbers because 5 minutes in one area could be 5 minutes too long for someplace else.
Right, and really depends on the part of the country.
And you have to be very willing to understand that you are putting your dog in some form of uncertainty there. And so, yes, you can do it. To be truthful, I have done it as well, to go in and drop clothes up the dry cleaner off. Yeah, my dog is there, but the car has been warmed up, and but to leave him for like an hour or two unattended in a car, no go.
Especially even if they have to go to the bathroom
Yeah,
or
it's
they
not
need
fair.
food,
It's
water.
not right. Yeah. I mean, leave them at home if that's the case, if you're going to be out of the car that long.
All right, we have Janet. She is saying her Great Dane hates the rain and she lives in Seattle. That is a problem. Rains all winter long. She says they play lots of hide the treat and hide and seek. Find me games. What's something that people can do in the winter months just to keep that?
That's great. I think we might talk about having exercise be also mental stimulation as well. And as far as dogs not liking rain, my Afghans don't like the rain, but they love the snow.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As soon as they see it's raining, they come right back inside.
Wow.
But they love going outside in the snow. Yeah. So I understand that. But right in Seattle, where if a dog it rains, yeah. But you have to find areas. A lot of people use like covered runs or have certain areas that they build that gives your dog some form of protection so they can go outside and play for a little while. And so they have canvas areas, and you can do that if you can afford it. But if not, again, go to the basement, play some kind of toys and things like that, tug of war, whatever it is that's fun for your dog. But keeping them stimulated is just as important as keeping the body exercise as well.
And that's probably something that you can really combine those two, because when you're running around in the basement looking for treats or playing a game, your dog is getting a little bit of exercise at the same time.
Yeah, you're not going to ignore your dog. You want to include them in certain activities. And I think that it's no reason and no excuse not to bring them along to wherever you do.
And just don't leave them in the car if you can.
Don't leave them in the car
with
for a long time, right?
All right. Is there anything else that you think we're missing that people should know about?
I think frostbite. I think we don't talk about frostbite too often. I think it's cats and dogs. It's not very common, but the areas of frostbite that can happen if they left to are usually the areas that don't have a lot of circulation, around the ear tips, the tail, the nose, the muzzle, and the pads of the feet. And if it gets really bad, of course, you can have danger of some of that tissue becoming necrotic and dead. So again, other reasons to be concerned about dogs, depending about what kind of dogs they are. But realize that keep a dog well protected, and then you hopefully won't have any kind of medical problems.
What would those signs be, Dr. Klein, if your dog starts to get hypothermia or frostbite? What would you notice?
Well, with frostbite, which are going to area, the area feels obviously very, very cold, and it can get very hot afterwards. And the tissue can actually change color. It gets very, very red. If it starts turning black, then you have a real issue because it's already become dead tissue. But you want to get away from that before you catch it before it happens too soon. And that would happen in areas with heavy, it gets extreme cold and lots of wind. And I think those are areas, dogs that have to be very careful with that. And I think they do make protective kind of balms and all that to put on the tips of the ears to protect them as well.
All right. That's all for us today. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you.
and welcome back to the Northeast.
Thanks, yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Klein. All right, well, now it is time to talk my favorite thing, puppies. AKC is very proud to launch a new project called Puppy Pack. We're going to tell you the story of some puppies' lives. We follow 7 different puppies, one from each of the groups, through the first year of their life, and it is very exciting. So I have a question for you. I might already know the answer, but do you want to meet our Puppy Pack? I thought so. Well, we have Hazel, the English setter, in our sporting group right there. Gideon, the Abisan Hound, in the Hound group. Nymeria, the Bernese Mountain Dog, in the working group, one breed there that loves the snow. Smidge, the Russell Terrier, which is in our Terrier group. Marzipan, the French Bulldog, non-sporting group. Striker, the Shih Tzu, in the toy group. And Ryder, the Australian Shepherd, in our herding group. Welcome to all of these beautiful puppies. They look so excited, and we are so excited to have them here. The Puppy Pack has officially launched. We're going to be featuring that on AKC's Instagram account. That is American Kennel Club. Instagram users can also follow along specifically for the Puppy Pack. Just go to the hashtag AKC Puppy Pack to see all of the cuteness. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Marissa Sarbach, and thank you to my guest, Dr. Klein. Always happy to have him. You can find us on AKC TV, download us on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Also follow us on AKC TV's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be there right after the show. We'll be posting some pictures. AKC TV, sit, stay, watch. We leave you with our good dog moment of the week, a little love to help you through your winter blues. Send us your good dog moment to akctv.com/submit.